10.
How's that?
Here we go. Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site is Emily Spurling, head of global indexes at Nasdaq. We have Lilja, global head of index product and operations, also at Nasdaq, and Efram Slen, head of index research at Nasdaq. And we're here to discuss the 40th anniversary of the Nasdaq-100 Index, the ecosystem built around it, and strategy for growing Nasdaq's index business. It is great to have the whole team with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. 40th anniversary, Emily.
Yes.
Big deal. Tell us about what that milestone means to you and the growth of the Nasdaq index business since the launch of the Nasdaq 100.
Absolutely. I mean, 40 years of the Nasdaq 100, 40 years of innovation, really, is how we talk about it. And it's 40 years of innovation for the Nasdaq 100 and the companies that have been a part of that ecosystem for this length of time, but also for our business and how we have continued to innovate beyond the Nasdaq 100 and grown our business. But first I'll say the Nasdaq 100 is such a celebratory moment because it is very simple in its rules. It's the top 100 non-financial companies listed on Nasdaq, but the essence of that product has become so much more in what it represents and what it means to Nasdaq as a brand, what it means to us as an index business. And it has taken on a life of its own. It represents innovation, growth-oriented mindsets, driving the future of the 21st century economy, and really bringing us all into the future and where we can go. And it belongs in everybody's portfolio now. It's found its home in everybody's portfolio. And our business has really grown on the back of that product. It's our flagship product, and we've been able to bring new products to market on the back of that and grow and extend our portfolio. And today we have over 400 products tracking our indexes in market with over 650 billion in assets under management in only exchange traded products tracking those products. So beyond that, we have much more. There's also over 600 billion in notional value traded daily on average across the Nasdaq 100 ecosystem. So it just speaks to the liquidity and growth of this product and our business over time.
Yeah, and Efram, let's go into that conversation a bit more and what the Nasdaq 100 means to the market today and the growth of products tracking the Nasdaq 100. Give us more insight into what that ecosystem looks like.
Sure, thanks. And just picking up off of what a little bit Emily was saying, right? Just saying the Nasdaq 100 is comprised of, first start off, it's 100 of the largest non-financial companies that are listed here. And what does it mean to people? It really depends, right? It's really taken on a life of its own. It's what Emily was saying. So in many cases to people, right, it's technology, it's the US markets, but it's also US large cap growth. There's just many different ways that people tend to think about what this index can be. And also when they think about, how they're going to get exposure to many different thematic technologies even, right, you're getting a whole swath, right, of exposures across. One of the things that really, you talk about the growth of what's transpired in the last 40 years, right, the Nasdaq 100, again, when it launched in 1985, about 25% or so of the companies were technology-based. Fast forward 10 years, in 1995, it was about 50-ish%. That's kind of where we've maintained ever since. And so, yes, while the other weights are maybe technology adjacent, in many cases, the whole point here is really giving a good exposure across the landscape. You're getting a good cross-section of the leaders, right, and innovators of tomorrow. With respect to the growth in the products in the ecosystem, right? So Emily hit on some great points kicking off here. I'll kind of tap on top of that, right? So in insurance, one of the sectors or parts of our business we've been looking to really grow. 25 indexes we've launched in the last year that were put into market really to support the insurance space, specifically around the Nasdaq 100. So that was at the core, the equity component of the insurance products that we helped bring to market. That's in addition to all the other insurance products that we have tracking the Nasdaq 100. On top of that, and this is where I think just really give a sense of how much things have grown just in the last decade. So 10 years ago, there were 24 ETFs that tracked the Nasdaq 100 globally with around $43 billion in assets. It's over 10 times that today, and with over 86 products. So again, we've had a really great trajectory of growth across the insurance, ETF, and Emily hit on the liquidity of the futures and derivatives.
I can't believe how much was launched in just 1 year in one sector. I did not expect that number to be as large. Cameron, let's lift the curtain back a bit more. What is the life index life cycle, and how does the Nasdaq 100 fit as an example part of that? Tell us a little bit about the mechanics behind it.
Sure. Well, the index life cycle starts with the new product team, and that's really the creative side of the business. So think about some of the strategies that they have in mind. They go and they pitch those to clients, and they take a look at the portfolio that the clients have and kind of where that strategy can fit into it. And then the other side of that coin is that clients, of course, have things that they want to bring to market. So it's that team's responsibility to work with them and to iterate, to test, and make sure that they come up with the right recipe for an index. From there, we go to the launch side of things. So it's important to do the creative work and make sure that you have a good methodology, but then you have to go through the checks and balances to make sure that that methodology is aligned with the model and that it is a fit for the market. We run through all the operational tests to make sure that it is very robust before we're ready to launch it in the live state. And then from there, we have a portfolio management team that's in charge of the day-to-day. So you can think corporate actions, those occur on a daily basis. They have to be applied to the index. We have regularly scheduled rebalances and reconstitutions, which kind of serve as a refresher of the index. You think about the methodology, it's meant to serve a certain investment objective. And so every so often you have to go into the rule book and say, okay, it's time to refresh these companies or refresh the weights. And for the Nasdaq 100, that's extremely important, right? Everyone looks forward to the December reconstitution where you have companies moving in and out of that index, and then it's rebalanced on a quarterly basis. Since there's over $400 billion tracking the Nasdaq 100, there are a lot of eyes on it. So we have a ton of processes in place. The index itself is, of course, rules-based, which means you have the highest quality data that's going into this. And so we have a team that oversees that within the index lifecycle. And I guess to round that out, really it's the research function. And I won't speak too much about that because Efram's here, the head of research. But one of the arms within that team is what we call the methodology research team. Right. And so the Nasdaq 100 itself, it's aged pretty well over the last 40 years. There haven't been too many changes that were necessary, but the markets do evolve. And so this team has to make sure that they're always looking at the methodology, making sure it's up to speed with what investors are looking for. Any changes in the marketplace, even something like a market cap threshold or a liquidity threshold, it needs to be updated. And so that team makes sure, kind of to round things out, that we keep those indexes very fresh.
So Efram, let's talk about that. What's something about the Nasdaq 100 that the average investor might not know?
So starting to hit on this in the last question too. So 8 of the top 10 largest companies in the world listed right here at NASDAQ, in the NASDAQ 100, in the S&P 500, right? Really is a great place to come and house right their listing. So really, really proud to have those companies here and have them be a part of the index. That's first and foremost. Another thing, when I said before, what's the one line about what is the index comprised of? 100 of the largest non-financial companies listed on NASDAQ. Well, back in 1985, we actually launched 2 indexes. It wasn't just the Nasdaq 100, it was also the Nasdaq Financial 100. So we actually split up the listing and said, how do we make sure the Nasdaq Composite, which is the index comprised of all securities listed here, put them into 2 tradable baskets, the top 100 financial and the top 100 non-financial. It just so happened the non-financial, the actual Nasdaq 100 NDX, that's what took on a life of its own. And I'll close out with my final third point, right? The Invesco QQQ, Qs, Triple Q, right? That ETF that the Invesco manages, that is over $300 billion in assets. Right? It's one of the best performing ETFs or funds when you look at Morningstar over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So 15 years in particular, in the top 2% in its category in large cap growth.
I did not know that. I learned something new today. I did not know we had the Nasdaq 100 financials. So Emily, let's talk about the strategy for growing the index business. What does that outlook look like?
Yeah, of course. Actually, I think before going to the strategy, I'll say we as a business have grown over the past, particularly the past 5 years, to create more of a robust team that covers the entire index lifecycle. What Cam was alluding to across the different teams in his group, we're really supporting our clients and helping them grow their products in market. We're helping them ensure their products remain investable. We're helping them sell their products and grow. And so really our success is their success, or their success is our success, right? So we've been able to build out the team so that we're poised for growth. And now our strategy to grow is really around 3 core pillars: globalize, innovate, and extend. And so globalization is all about bringing our flagship and what we do best globally to all the regions that we can, to really build a presence there, drive awareness of who we are and what we're capable of, to then bring more products to market in those markets as well. And we've seen success. We've seen incredible growth in Asia, in particular in Korea and Japan over the past 3 years. And we've seen sort of budding growth in EMEA as well. as markets start to bring more ETFs to market, where we kind of have a great presence. And so we see the growth. We've expanded the teams there, and we know we can get in the door a lot of times with the Nasdaq 100 and then showcase how much more we do. When we think about innovation is all about diversifying and extending our portfolio beyond the Nasdaq 100. And again, I mentioned we have 400 or so products tracking our indexes, and that's been a lot of bringing products to market that are beyond the Nasdaq 100 and different in quantitative or thematic strategies. This past year, we brought more than 115 products to market in 2024. More than 50% of those, or more than 70% of those, were actually non-NDX related. So we are continuously moving our business forward in terms of innovating, and that means being a bigger part of our clients' journey too. You know, doing more with them and helping them grow and expand their portfolios, and then extend. And Efram touched on this with what we're doing in the insurance space, but extending and bringing the Nasdaq 100 into a new client segment like the insurance space has been extremely lucrative over the past year or two, really, where we've taken the approach of drive the awareness, bring in the expertise, and then bring the products to market and help grow that business. And we plan to do that in other client segments as we see the demand fits where we fit.
Right.
So really excited about where we can go.
So Cameron, to wrap up here, speaking of clients, what are you hearing from the marketplace? What's raising assets, and what new products are folks excited to bring to the market?
Well, we're here talking about the Nasdaq 100. The Nasdaq 100 is raising assets. We saw over $40 billion flow into Nasdaq 100 products just in 2024. But it's not just the Nasdaq 100. Emily and Efram have both mentioned different slices, whether it's the insurance market or just different cuts of the Nasdaq 100 itself. Over the last year or so, we've launched concentrated versions of the Nasdaq 100 for those that kind of want to lean into the mega cap techs. But also versions that look at some of the smaller companies, which are still large cap companies, but maybe don't get as much attention as the top 7 to 10 companies. And we've seen success in the marketplace with products that are tracking those indexes. If you pivot kind of further away from that, to get away from just equities, there's the notion of options overlay. If you think about, there's an entire generation of investors that's looking to generate income, and we've had a really nice market performance run, a nice bull market over the last decade plus with a few hiccups, but nothing that's been really sustained. And so investors are looking for some downside protection, and kind of the innovation around ETFs now allow for that sort of wrapper to hold multiple asset classes. And so for investors that are still looking to generate income, looking for downside protection, but don't necessarily want to go to something like fixed income, they still want exposure to those big names, they could do an option like that where there are products that are tracking these sorts of derived Nasdaq 100 based indexes. And we've seen over $17 billion flow into those sorts of products over the course of 2024. So I think it's one of the fastest growing segments kind of in that ecosystem.
All right, well, congratulations on the fantastic growth into the team. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.